Hi everyone, Autumn here. So, back when I used to live in Denmark, I used to do a radio show an English radio show, talking about relationships, love, sex, trauma, a whole range of issues. People would call in and ask questions, mostly from the expat community, people, Americans, English, Irish. It was one of those radio stations that was geared towards expats. And I did the show 3 times a week for 2 hours each show, and it was awesome. I loved doing it. I loved answering stuff, talking to experts, having people on, mostly having people call in and ask questions or share their stories about whatever was going on in their life. So I've decided to do that on an internet radio show, just something that I can do that's easy on my own, similar to the radio show I did in Denmark. So I'm starting to do the show geared towards kind of toxic relationships, manipulation, manipulative to people, narcissistic abuse, in this type of talking about relationships and relationships with our friends or family, dealing with narcissists or psychopaths. And I'm going to do it on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Central. So anybody that would like to listen, tune in, I'm going to post more information on it. I'm going to start it this Sunday night, which 7 p.m. Central Time. So if you're in other time zones, you can figure out when it's going to be. And I'm going to also post it afterwards. So after I do the radio show itself, I'll post in case you want to listen to it later. But if you're available and you want to listen to it live, that would be awesome, because I would love for people to call in, share their stories, or ask questions, and so on and so forth. So that would be awesome. So the first show I've been preparing for it, is this coming Sunday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. Central Time. And I'm hoping to grow the audience and create kind of a community feel of the radio show where people can call in and get answers to their questions, or even just share their stories. I think that there will probably, because of the way dealing with this type of trauma and dealing with manipulative people and narcissists and cluster B personality disorder people, either it be a mom or a dad or an ex-husband or a current husband or wife or ex-wife, whoever it is, even if you don't call up and ask, I am sure, given the fact that they all tend to play by the similar playbook, that just by listening to the questions of other people, that you'll probably find very similar, if not the same exact issues that you're having in your life within the questions, and therefore the answers that I'll talk about. And I'm going to have some other people on as well too, that are either life coaches. I'm a life coach myself. I used to be a therapist. I have for 1 year, basically like a psychologist. I have a PsyD, and I went to Argosy University for that. And I liked working with people, but I did not like mainstream mental health field. I didn't like the limitations. I didn't really even know much about life coaching until about 2 years ago. And I know it's become more popular, and I see why, because as a life coach, I'm able to integrate more into my client's life, and not just do. I have a business background as well, and work with them on their career, work with them on healing their whole life. I can be involved in their life on a different level, because one thing that I find silly about therapy is that our issues and our problems don't just occur Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And having 1 hour with somebody a week, to me, is almost irrelevant. When I've gone through therapy in the past, not only did I have an impossible time finding a therapist that understood narcissistic abuse and understood what I was going through, I also found every therapist I found, nobody looked into more alternative ways of healing or modes of looking at, our abuse and changing mentalities. I mean, everything was very just, traditional this modern mainstream psychology, again, 1 hour a week within this very limited capacity. I had signed up for at one point several years ago, an email therapist. And this email therapist actually helped me more than the in-person therapist who was the real therapist I was seeing, because I was able to contact her every day whenever I needed, help, and she would get back to me as soon as she could. Sometimes it was within that day or the next day, but I had constant contact with her throughout the week. And I always wanted to have a therapist like that, especially when I was going through something major. I never understood this idea that we are supposed to, be okay with just 1 hour a week in this, in this clinical setting, and somehow this is supposed to heal us. I mean, no wonder it takes people 20 years through therapy. That's absurd. If you did anything for 1 hour a week, you wouldn't be good at it. You wouldn't get anywhere. I'm just saying, right? So there needs to be, in my philosophy, in my ideologies, there needs to be an overhaul in how therapy works. And I think that the closest thing that I've seen move in that direction, to have somebody to actually, look at all facets of your life and be available more often and give you more support, is life coaching. Fortunately and unfortunately, it is not licensed at all, I don't think, and therefore it does tend to, there are a lot of very poor life coaches or people that are not qualified at all, or, I'm not saying you have to have a degree to do it, not at all, I'm not saying that, but that just aren't qualified as people to do it. They just call themselves life coaches, and then they're actually almost, I found a lot of narcissists do this, and therapists as well. A lot of narcissists are, psychologists, therapists, doctors, psychiatrists, or narcissists. But within life coaching, it does have a very, very broad spectrum of people. So you do have to be a little bit discerning about who you pick as a life coach. But on the same token, I feel like, especially in these type of offshoots like narcissistic abuse, that isn't as well known in the modern mental health field, it's really valuable to find somebody like a life coach that can be in your life more often, can offer you alternative ways of seeing things, of healing, that can understand what you're going through, and that can help you from a generalized place in your life, not just with let's talk about your childhood over and over. Yeah, that's important, and we definitely, sometimes you need to do some actual psychoanalytical, psychodynamic therapy work. But I think healing is a much broader spectrum than that. It has to do with the actual things going on in our lives. Our environment creates us, and and I always say that if you have a toxic environment, if you are not happy or at peace with the energy level in which you live, the people around you, the actual environment where your home is, where you spend your actual time, if you don't have pride in what you're doing, if you feel stuck in a career, these things will make healing almost ineffective on a real level. We need to live in the present moment as well as the past. The present moment is where we live, what we eat, what career we do. Are we proud of ourselves? Do we find fulfillment in our daily lives? How are we physically? Do we feel healthy? All of these, and on and on and on. So I find as a life coach, I'm able to bring to the table. I have a mom and an aunt who are doctors and MDs, but they do a lot of alternative medicine. I've been very lucky and blessed to have literally grown up in that office and in that environment. Actually working at the office in high school and in college, and learning so much through my aunt and my mother, being around, alternative ways of thinking, medicine. I have a business background. I owned a very successful business for almost 10 years, which I sold a couple of years ago and went into life coaching and therapy because, I got out of therapy as a psychologist, but I couldn't maintain the person I really was having a business where I was working 100 hours a week and everything was about, money, money, money. And it was like, as soon as I'm bringing in, as soon as we're grossing $1 million, I'll calm down. Then it was like, as soon as I'm grossing 2 million a year, I'll calm down. And mind you, I wasn't that rich. That was just my business grossing. But still, big achievements that never was enough. This is the world we live in. This is the standard, traditional, almost a common, average, normal way of thinking now. It's never enough. And we have to come to a place where it is enough. Anyway, so I have found that life coaching suits me much better. I'm still, my business I owned was a music school that was big, and I was still able to still be involved in my art. So I still have some advanced level students I keep at the college and undergrads, or under pre-collegiate and undergrads. But I have found that life coaching fulfills me, and this new path of working more with trauma, narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse has been, finally, I figured it out, right? How long ago is it? I'm 35, not that matters, but 12 years ago, I did this ID. And it took me this long to figure out what I was going to do with it. And I feel really lucky to be able to help anybody. I see that what I went through was for a greater reason, and I think we all have a reason for it, as much as it sucks. And yeah, I mean, if I could wave a wand, I would have nobody go through narcissistic abuse or dealing with a psychopath. It creates such upheaval and enormous pain and hurt, but there is something on the other side of that if we look at the pain we suffer and this journey. Narcissist Free was talking about this in one of the articles she was reading yesterday, I believe. Something that I've been talking about for years, and especially in the last year, going through all of this with the narcissistic abuse and realizing the narcissists have been in my life and coming to terms with it instead of making excuses. And what she was talking about with that article was instead of seeing the traditional victim, seeing trauma, hurt, and pain and abuse and these struggles and journeys we go through from a place of victimhood and a pain and a suffering, to see it through this more Eastern lens or alternative lens of it being for a greater purpose in our lives. It being the journeys or the things we have to go through in order to become truly enlightened or find greater wisdom or find our true calling in life or any of these things. Because honestly, when I look at the people I've known, the people that are the most wise, that have the most to give, that are the most interesting, that have the most life force in them, that are just the most brilliant people, and depending on how you gauge success, the most successful people. Not just money, often not even money, just who they are and what they have to give. These people have gone through some of the most trying, hard, abusive, whatever situations in life. I've known a few people that have had these sheltered lives. They've really never had to worry about anything. They've had everything given to them. They've had no abuse, no trauma, no neglect. They live in a bubble. Mommy and daddy protected them from day one. Then they went right into a marriage with somebody that they controlled and who protected them, and that they never even had a lot of... And granted, I don't know a lot of people like this, but I do know some from where I grew up. And they're completely unenlightened. They're not wise. They're not interesting. They don't have anything to give. Their journey in life is very immature. And, if you want to believe, I don't know if you do, I don't fully know if I do, in some ways I do, believe in journeys in different lives that we may live, spiritually or on this earth, or even if we just look at our one life we're given, if there is a journey from point A to point B, those people that haven't gone through anything like this, haven't gone through pain or abuse or suffering or hurt, trauma, and had to work through it. See, it's not the trauma or the hurt or the pain that is relevant. It's the working through it, the discoveries that you will that you will have. They often happen when you don't even know it at the time, and then all of a sudden, a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 years later, you're like, wow. By virtue of me going through this, there was invaluable tools or lessons or information or wisdom that I gained that I never would have gotten otherwise. So the process and the journey is what's important. Okay, so this totally turned into a long video, as always, with me rambling. But I have more structure in the radio show. I did it for several years in Denmark, in a different forum, but I think it's going to be great. So if you're interested in listening, I would love to have you or anyone else join. I will start linking the information, the shows. It's going to be on Blog Talk Radio, that website, and the show name is Lifting the Veil with life coach Autumn Blake, and I will link and I will keep posting videos in the next week, this week for the first show, and I'm going to do it every Sunday at 7 p.m. So if you miss this week, feel free. And if it goes well, I may do another show throughout the week if I have a lot of people that are interested in calling in and sharing their story or asking questions. If I get a lot of people interested in doing that, I will for sure have 1 or 2 more throughout the week shows. Okay, great. I hope to see everyone on Sunday, and I'll post another video later when I have some time in between appointments. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Namaste.